My next guest has visited 60 countries. He's had more visits to countries than I've had hot breakfast. And I tell you what, he's also the man who knows everything about Ipswich history. I'm talking about from historyouthere.com, Harold Peacock. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Damo. Nowhere in the world is there anywhere like Ipswich here in Queensland.
No, you got it right, mate. And we've got a great story here that you're going to tell this morning, taking us back 151 years to when a Brisbane alderman came to Ipswich to fake his own death.
Yeah, that's right. It was on the morning of Tuesday, the 20th of April, 1875. Two men, one named Watson and the other one Harley, went for a swim in the Bremer River at Basin Pocket here in Ipswich. Harley jumped in first and swam to the other side. Watson tried to follow him but was overwhelmed by cramp. Harley went to his rescue, and being a good swimmer, he was able to stay afloat for some time with Watson struggling in his arms. And Danny, unfortunately, couldn't be headed over. He'll understand the life-saving problem there.
Yeah.
But the people on shore, none of them could help because none of them could swim. So tragically, both Watson and Harley drowned.
Oh.
Their bodies were retrieved and held for an inquest. This made headlines in both the Brisbane Courier and the Queensland Times. It was reported that Watson was a clerk to the Ipswich solicitor Charles Chubb, and Harley was the assistant station manager at Ipswich, having been a printer in Brisbane and an alderman on the Brisbane's Municipal Council. Now, Harley's son called into the Brisbane Courier's office to get more details of his father's death, and two friends came to Ipswich to take charge of the body. But the problem was, Damo, very little of it all was true.
Oh.
The source of the story was a letter from Thomas Tomlinson, but no such person existed. The Ipswich solicitor Charles Chubb was real. He was an Ipswich alderman himself and later the mayor, but he didn't have a clerk named Watson. And what's more, the man Harley had frequently been seen in Ipswich very much alive after his reported drowning.
Oh.
And so the whole story was unravelling. Harley himself came forward to put the story straight. He had indeed saved the youth from drowning at Basin Pocket, but there were no witnesses. The youth's name was Wilson, not Watson, and he was a clerk to a Dalby law firm. But again, there was a problem. You see, the Ipswich police knew nothing about any drowning, and this time there was no such person as Wilson in Dalby. The only person who actually existed was the man Harley himself. Now, his full name was Henry Richard Harley. He had owned a Brisbane printing business, and he was an alderman in the Brisbane Council. However, he was once sacked as a volunteer from the City Volunteer Fire Brigade. He was referred to the city solicitor when he owed money to the council. Harley sold his printing business, but after that was declared insolvent, and shortly after that was when he was reported drowned in the Bremer River, having heroically tried to save a life. So Harley claimed he had in fact saved not just one life, but 6 lives since he'd been in Ipswich. Now, as evidence to that, he sent to the Queensland Times a medal that was inscribed, presented to H.R. Harley by the Humane Society of Queensland on the recommendation of his friend W.H. Norris as token of esteem. Strangely, though, the medal was made of leather, not metal. And the so-called friend William Henry Norris was of dubious repute. You see, Norris had been charged with rape, but the prime witness disappeared. He'd also been stabbed and threatened with a nulla over dispute over another man's wife. But anyway, look, it seems that, anyway, back to Harley, that it seems certain that the Brisbane alderman Harley came to Ipswich to fake his own death, but when that didn't work out, he tried to cast himself as a hero. And although he was totally disgraced, it must be said that through it all, he did keep a sense of humour. And that's because after all this, he disappeared from Queensland and resurfaced in South Australia. That's where he was founding manager of a drama society. And ironically, his opening night comedy was called Flying from Justice. So Ipswich had a key role in that story of the Brisbane alderman.
Well, I tell you what, you couldn't write that better, could you?
Oh, well, it was just an amazing story. And then Brisbane have this guy's photo up on the walls. There's no story about he tried to fake his death and pull the wool over our eyes out here at Ipswich. It just can't happen, can it?
Well, you got to give him an A+ for trying, at least, I guess.
But at least he had a sense of humour down in South Australia.
Well, that's it, mate. And, of course, we can catch that story. Now, you're going to post that story up on your website.
That's right, historyouthere.com. It'll be there first thing in the morning.
I look forward to it, mate. And as we know, and as Danny often says, you do so much great research into finding some of the really quirky and amazing stories about Ipswich history, and we really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Damo, and have a great day.
You too, mate. There he is, Harold Peacock. Historyouthere.com is where you can check that story and a whole host more. It is a fantastic website, and you'll sit there for hours reading through some of these wonderful stories.